Hey YouTube, Matt here. I thought I would make a follow-up video to my last video where I showcased some in-process inking work on a novel cover commission. So this is the back cover as I'd shown in the prior video, and it has not been touched with ink yet. And I'm going to show you guys how I would go about starting something like this. And I wanted to share the cover from yesterday that I was working on. So this is the finished ink product. The cover is complete with ink. No mistakes were made. It's ready to be scanned, and some light touching up, light cleanup, and the color will be applied. And then it'll be sent off. The file will be ready. So let's jump into this back cover here. And I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to start with the 1.0 millimeter fine liner. I always start small, very small. There's a lot of small details in this particular back cover here. You can see we've got some mud and debris on the ground. There's mud on the boots. The boots have a lot of detail in them themselves. You got all these little straps, buckles, the boot laces, all these different elements that, as you can see in the pencil version, they're quite muddy, but that's all going to be cleared up once I dive in with the 0.1 millimeter ink pen. And after I apply the 0.1 millimeter ink, I'll do an erasure and get rid of all this pencil and all this graphite underneath, and then make some of the foreground line art pop by going over it with like a 0.3 millimeter. For the legs here, I might even use a 1.0 just to help embolden them. And yeah, so getting into this, I mean, we can start anywhere really. Start right down here and just trying to mimic the way that dirt looks in clumps on the ground. And this is all going to be colored here too. I'm going to be coloring, adding some digital colors to everything in this back cover here. Unlike the front cover is mostly black and white, but the back here is going to be fully colored. This area is going to be all black, and the text from the back blurb is going to be in this position here. So going in with the 0.1, it's just a matter of finding the cleanest line, the clearest lines, defining them, and creating the illusion of, again, just bits of dirt on the ground. You can see, you might think it's quite a tedious process, but it's really cool seeing the line art, the pencil line art, come into its own with the ink. The ink really just, it's a defining line, you know. It's like, it's almost like adding the icing on a cake in a sense, because it beautifies it, but it also, again, it defines precisely what is meant to be seen in a drawing. Got some kind of puddle here just to make it look really nasty and wet, muddy, dirty. And there's dirt on the boots too. You have to think about these little details if you want them to really stand out. I'm going to jump into the boots here to show you guys some ways to think about putting in very small details and just defining them. So we've got laces here. Thinking about how the lace itself, because you can see that I haven't, you know, it's all very roughly drawn in. And that's usually what I do with the construction lines. I'm not going for hyper clean details because I know I'm going to ink it. So thinking about, you got these metal rings here, and they're attached to the boots themselves. So I'm drawing some metal pieces that you would see affixed to the boot. So this is all metal here. It might be kind of a bolt here. And then the lace is going to come around. So we're going to give it some dimensionality and have it come under the ring here like this. And then it's going to come over and end up on that side there. Okay, so you can see how it's wrapping. It's wrapping underneath the ring. This kind of thinking is critical if you're going to add not only dimensionality, but realism to your drawings. Especially, and this is why, again, I'm using a 0.1 millimeter fine liner, because of these very meticulous, tiny details can be, again, rendered out. They can be fleshed out. And when a person looks at your art, they're going to see that it looks believable. I mean, these are going to look like boots when all is said and done. And you know, the more time you spend inking a drawing, and the more thought you put into the way, you know, objects look, the way objects work, it's going to help your drawing succeed in the viewer's eye. They're going to believe what they're seeing. They're going to say those are boots, and they look like functional boots. So that's just going to help your cause. It's going to take your work that much further. Sometimes it's easy. I mean, when you're a young artist, it's easy to get kind of, well, I mean, distracted is one thing, but to not care about, I mean, the rendering, but also just small details like the mud. You know, you might scratch it in. You might not care about the way it appears because it's just mud, right? But that's the wrong way to think about it. Every line counts. If there's one thing you can take away from this video, it's remembering that every single line you put down, especially with ink, it's going to count. It's going to be seen. Every line is going to be seen. So you want to make sure that you put thought behind the placement of those lines. I'll show you guys this buckle here too. We can get this drawn in. I'm not going to show you guys the entire drawing here. I just wanted to showcase these elements within this drawing so you can get an idea of my approach to inking in a drawing. And this is a drawing for a client, so it's got to be great. It's got to be completed as cleanly and as best I can, so that everyone's happy. And, you know, this process can take a long time depending on how much detail you've got. You know, I'm going for that kind of representational look of these boots, so it's going to take a moment, but it'll all be worth it. And I'm going to show you guys the final product, probably in a short clip. I'll show you guys all the cover work, and then you'll see what's gone into this project overall. And I'll probably make a video showcasing the project all around, like the colored work in the thumbnail. I'll show you guys the final covers. So getting this leather strap here, bringing this around. I mean, it's sitting on top of, it would be sitting on top of the laces a little bit because it's been strapped over the laces once they were tied, or they're already wound in. So you would strap this up to tighten the boot on the lower leg, the foot. And when you're inking, you know, inking is great practice. It's going to slow you down, which is good. You want to draw carefully and slowly. You want to ink slowly. You know, this can be a very tranquil kind of meditative experience. If you're, anyone that's ever tried it knows, I think you know that it's calming. And in a way, it's kind of grueling because you have to focus so deeply, but only good can come from that. And, you know, like I said, it's always, it's going to look like you put the effort in when you truly put the effort in, when you put the time in and you're careful. So we've got a strap going on here and carrying some detail through, some stitching detail, just adding all these little aspects that add dimensionality. Dimensionality is huge, absolutely huge when you're doing the inking on solid objects. And I wanted to show you guys one more aspect of the boots here that I'd go in carefully with. You know, the bottom of the boots, the rubber, I didn't. It's muddy. Obviously, it's muddy because they're covered in mud. So I'm gonna do that layer first. Draw a bit of mud in, bit of dirt and debris. Always think about the foreground elements first. Some overlap to make it look like they're really just in the mud. With inking, it's all done in layers, kind of like it's like Photoshop, but in real life, because you have to consciously think what's going to be in the foreground. And that's another huge tip. When you're inking, you want to always ink the foreground elements first so that the overlap happens immediately. You don't have to go over it with white ink or make any digital corrections. And if you don't scan the drawing in, then obviously you'd want to do this. You'd want to be aware of what's going to show up in the foreground first, and then lay in those background elements, so that, again, it adds a crazy amount of realism, dimensionality, and it looks cool. Again, it looks like you put the thought in, because it's not easy to accomplish a lot of that. Someone might look at it and think, how did they achieve all that complexity? Now, this isn't a hugely complex piece right here, but if you've got a lot of working parts, like say you drew a city scene with cars and people and you know, maybe even like the smoke from a sewer grate close to the viewer, that's going to show up and overlap everything. So you can see the essentiality in thinking about all of these things when you're making your art. It's just really important. I mean, you could do it without it. The art's not going to look strong though. And the more skilled you become as an artist, you're going to realize that you're going to want to think about things this way. You're going to want to think about your drawing in such a way to strengthen it, strengthening your art. And it all comes with practice. Some of these things just come kind of naturally. I've found over the years, you know, things that I've studied and learned from textbooks, from videos, and a lot of it just from practice. It just kind of kicks into your psyche. You just kind of figure out how things should be, how they look, how they're going to look better. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to discover these things naturally. But of course, you know, there's nothing wrong with using video tutorials, just learning, constantly learning. Art is all about learning. It really is. It's an endless learning endeavor. And the more you practice, the faster you'll get better. All right. More mud over here, underneath. You know, and I'm going to include some bit of rendering shadow lines underneath just to show that the light is being shadowed, obviously, by the boot above it on the ground there. So again, you don't want to get too scratchy, too muddy. I mean, that's ironic there. Muddy with the mud, because it's just going to look messy in a way that doesn't look good. So I mean, even drawing mud on paper has order to it. All right, guys, I'm going to show you the final product when all of this is said and done, and you can see what this cover project amounts to. I want to thank you for tuning in, and if you enjoyed this content, let me know. Share your likes, your dislikes, even if anything, in the comments, and I will catch you guys for another video. Cheers.